Good. I'd like to welcome everyone to the November 13th, 2017 meeting of the Delaware County Board of Commissioners. Would everyone please join me in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I'm Jeff Benton, President of the Board. My left is Vice President Gary Merrill. My right is fellow Commissioner Bob Lewis, and we'd like to welcome our newest County Administrator to the table here, Mike Frommer, who is now the County Administrator, and Jennifer Walraven is our clerk today. So let's begin.
Resolution number 17-1195, in the matter of approving the electronic record of proceedings from regular meeting held November 9th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 17-1195. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
We do not have any public comment or elected official comment today, so that brings us item number 4, with our guests Susan Pingree and Sue Hansen with Helpline and Connections.
Very good.
Actually, Suzanne unfortunately couldn't be here because she had a death in the family. And so Colleen Dennis is here with me. She's our community volunteer resource coordinator. So can I pass these?
Sure.
Thank you. We'll pass them around. Yeah, thank you. There we go.
As Jeff said, I'm Sue Hansen, and I'm the Executive Director of Helpline of Delaware and Morrow Counties, and really appreciate you giving us a few minutes to talk about one of our programs. Helpline has been serving Delaware County for close to 50 years, and we do a variety of programs, but today I'm here to talk about Connections, which is the Delaware County Volunteer Center. And in your materials, you have information, just kind of some basic fact sheet information about Connections, and that is a program that began back in 1996 with a partnership between United Way of Delaware County, Source Point, then Council for Older Adults, and Helpline, at that time Help Anonymous. And Connections was founded initially in recognition of a need in Delaware County to have a clearinghouse for volunteers and volunteer opportunities. So a place where people who are interested in giving back to the community could get connected with nonprofits, projects, and critical human needs that required volunteers and could not be met by the usual personnel. So I think we all kind of have that idea that, volunteering is important, and, but what we see every day is nonprofits that could not function without volunteers. And as we all know, and I've been doing this work for many years, and as society has changed and people have become more busy, and most families, everybody's working, it's more and more challenging for community nonprofits to find the volunteers that they need. And the other interesting thing and shift that I've seen since my career started is that government is even now using volunteers, because we're all strapped in terms of having the personnel necessary to do the work that we do. And that volunteering also, having a high degree of volunteer engagement in a community increases social capital, increases civic engagement, and people's investment in their community. And even now with the internet, you think, wow, do we really need Connections, a clearinghouse for volunteer opportunities when we have the internet? People can just Google what they need. Well, if you spend a lot of time on the internet, you find out that, when you Google, you may or may not find what you're looking for. And a lot of it depends on whether a particular nonprofit has the resources to ensure they, have a search engine optimization linked to their website, and those require resources as well. And I'm going to talk about in a moment a good example of a nonprofit that we provide a tremendous amount of volunteers for, and they are very small. They have one full-time staff person and two part-time staff people, and they serve hundreds of people every week. And I'm talking about Common Ground Free Store. Common Ground And I remember when they opened in order to provide clothing for the community. And what they found was that people who were coming in to get clothing were also hungry. And so they began cooking, out of that little, place over on Central. They began cooking meals, and they began to see this incredible need for more and more volunteers. Not only to come in, and I don't know if you've ever donated clothes over at Common Ground and gone into their warehouse. I mean, it's like, this little warehouse is covered. It's just wall-to-wall clothing. So they need volunteers in order to sort those clothes, figure out what's going to, what's still usable, what they can use. And now, as they've recognized this need to feed people, that they need volunteers to make meals, bring food. They serve, I think, Colleen, you said 100. Probably 100 folks every time they're open. They feed 100 people, and that's not even the folks that are just there for clothing as well. And so they require about 300 volunteers. We probably send them about 300 volunteers a month. And that's not even all the volunteers they need, because they also do some marketing within their resources in order to engage volunteers in order to meet that community need. But without Connections, they would be vastly understaffed and would not be able to meet the community needs that they're meeting. And we're talking really, a nonprofit that goes from week to week, seeking the number of volunteers that they need in order to address that. And so Connections, we've seen we've seen, of course, with the onset of technology and the internet and websites, we've worked very hard to use our resources wisely. We have an online opportunity and way that people can apply for volunteer opportunities online on the Connections website. And folks can go into the database and they can find volunteer opportunities that they're interested in, and they can actually get directly linked to that organization. And so, as we found, of course, as with many programs, that our resources are becoming more stretched. It's becoming more and more difficult for us to find funding to pay for the staffing for Connections. That we're working on ways to become more efficient in terms of, for example, even more directly linking people who are seeking volunteer opportunities with those organizations. But folks are still calling us. Our website has exploded in terms of people looking to volunteer and give back, which I think is great because it says a lot about our community. But we also have folks then who either don't find what they need, or they have questions, or they need a real life person. And as we all know, when we make a phone call to a utility company or to our credit card provider, we're pushing buttons trying to get to a live person. Just let somebody answer the phone to talk to me. And so oftentimes there is that need for people to actually connect with a live human being and say, I'm interested in doing this, but I'm not quite sure. So a lot of what we do is maintaining volunteer, linking with over 70 nonprofit organizations, find out what they need in order to meet the community need they are serving, and then be that kind of one point of contact for folks who then want to give back and want to get linked in our community. We have a real emphasis in working with older adults, folks 55, 60 and older, and that's because we are partially funded by SourcePoint, and although they have they have Meals on Wheels and they have a big volunteer department, they also recognize that older adults, in order to, and I'm in that group, I just turned 60 this year, that folks need to stay engaged, and they're healthier, and and if they're healthier, then that makes us a healthier community, and that saves us money in the long run in terms of keeping people engaged and keeping them mentally and physically healthy. And so SourcePoint does support Connections partially, again, in order to link those older adults who may not be able to serve Meals on Wheels, or they may have a different interest in volunteering in another capacity in our community. We also coordinate the Day of Service. That's a national Day of Service, is Make a Difference Day, which you may or may not be aware of. But But that's a very family-oriented event. It draws close to 700 volunteers typically on an annual basis. Now this year it was fewer because it was very, very rainy. But we were out there raking leaves for those seniors and cleaning windows, and it's a really neat, it's a very, very neat event that promotes the idea of volunteering in your community, but it also, it also allows folks to get out and help seniors, as well as do projects for nonprofit organizations that may not have the resources to do those themselves or pay for those. And of course, the other piece, and that you may be interested in, is that we work very closely with Sean Miller over at EMA. Connections is written into the emergency management plan for disaster. We work with the health department. We work with Sean over at the EMA in order to, in case of disaster, be able to manage any influx of spontaneous volunteers that may just show up and want to help, in order to ensure, that those volunteers are managed, they are utilized in an efficient way, and that it's safe, and they're not going to areas and endangering first responders and that kind of thing. So we're very involved in that as well. So there's some information here on impact that you can see for yourself, but the 19,774 hours that we recorded last year that Connections volunteers donated to the community is a very conservative number. That's just what we were able to track. There are obviously thousands more that we were not able to track. In terms of our field, the value of that volunteer time that we've recorded is over $300,000 in terms of personnel costs that were saved to nonprofits in the community, and so that's a 25%, 30% return on investment in terms when you look at Connections budget and what we provide. The other two pieces I just want to briefly mention are two key events or two key initiatives that we're involved in. Connections places and trains and schedules all the volunteers for Place of Warmth. And I'm assuming you're familiar with Place of Warmth, and that is that's the shelter that Zion runs for homeless folks when the weather gets very, very cold, to ensure that people are not on the street when we get into the 20s and the teens in the wintertime. And so those folks are all volunteer at Zion, Mike Newman and those folks. And Connections plays a key role in terms of ensuring that we have sufficient volunteers in order to be able to staff that when it gets cold. So that's one key, and then Supplies for Scholars is another one, and that's part of our partnership with United Way, and of course Connections recruits most of the volunteers for that initiative, and that provides school supplies for students. We're not just in Delaware City, we're in Sunbury, we're all over the county in terms of again, ensuring or trying to ensure that we're meeting critical community needs through the use of volunteers. And so I think sometimes we think about, oh gee, isn't it great that somebody wants to volunteer? And sometimes I think we even sometimes think of that as kind of a luxury. But the reality is, for the 70-plus nonprofits that we work with, they just don't have the staff, they don't have the budget, they don't have the marketing dollars to find the volunteers they need to meet critical community needs. And that's really, the key role that we see Connections playing in our communities. And so, we just wanted to come and kind of educate you and raise your awareness about what Connections is now doing. Of course, our challenges have to do with continuing to try to meet the growing need for volunteers to meet critical community needs within our resources as our budget has shrunk over the years. And again, we are working to leverage technology in order to be more efficient. We can't fully automate. We have to have personnel to do some of this work. And so so we wanted to let you know about this valuable community resource, and, because we feel like, folks need to know about it, and so we're going to be getting out in the community more, educating both our government officials as well as, other parts of our community in terms of, because we've kind of had our light under a bushel a little bit, and we want to make sure that this important resource is maintained. Can I answer any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Sue.
Any particular types of organizations who really need volunteers at this point? I know probably everybody, but...
Well, Common Ground had a...
Oh, we're on audio.
We're recording, so we need to...
Recording, if you could just come to the mic, thank you.
From Connections.
Well, Common Ground recently, the first 2 weeks of November, had very few volunteers, so they reached out to us to try to fill that need, and we were able, through our database that we've built, to search the people who would be interested, and we had people come in and fill those needs and
good.
On into November, so it was
great.
fantastic.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, because in the database, Colleen was able to not just go in and find volunteers that specifically said Common Ground Free Store, but volunteers who indicated an interest in poverty, an interest in feeding people,
right.
and, and those kinds of things, and then was able to pull those out.
Right,
and
it's kind of a
those
reverse
kinds of
search,
things.
and then
So,
I was
yeah.
able to email right out of there, so it's very
And so
efficient.
those folks then,
Wonderful.
those folks then told other folks, so they're members of
Yeah, because I was getting
congregations, they're
emails from
friends.
people, I was like, who are you?
Yeah,
How did
yeah.
you find us? And, yeah, it was through a friend, mouth to mouth.
So there is
That's
also
great.
word of mouth as well. So yeah, I think Common Ground is a big one because it's certainly a very small organization that really relies heavily on volunteers. But, everybody knows, and people in need, of course, always need volunteers. And of course, they're fortunate because they have more, they have kind of a larger brand in our community, and so, that helps. But are there any other critical kinds of things that I think Place of Warmth, of course,
Yes.
it's that, we're beginning to recruit volunteers for Place of Warmth. And those volunteers are those volunteers are very unique in that they need to be able to be mobilized within 48 hours. And they need to be comfortable with this population, although there is, there's a off-duty police officer typically there as well on those evenings. But it is, and it's a scheduling, some people have to work overnight, and that's a challenge too. But there are folks out there. It's just a matter of finding them.
Right.
So,
No, thank you so much for the work you're doing, just
well, thank
vital.
you for your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, great.
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Colleen. Yeah, I didn't know a whole lot about collections or connections, so it's great to learn more about it. Thank you. Okay, Jennifer?
Resolution number 17-1196, in the matter of approving purchase orders and announce certificates and payments of warrants in batch number CM APR 1109.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 17-1196. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1197, in the matter of approving travel expense requests.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 17-1197. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1198, in the matter of approving a new liquor license request from RTJ Restaurant LLC doing business as Donato's and forwarding to the Ohio Division of Liquor Control with no objections and no request for a hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 17-1198. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1199, in the matter of canceling the Commissioner session scheduled for Monday, December 11th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 17-1199. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Item number 9 is being pulled from today's agenda, or...
9?
No, I'm sorry, not number 10.
10,
Sorry,
yeah.
got ahead of myself. Resolution number 17-1200, in the matter of accepting and approving the Delaware County Sheriff's Office Transport Report for the month of October 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 17-1200. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Item number 10 is being pulled from today's agenda, and we'll see that again probably next Monday. Item number 11, number 17-1201, in the matter of adopting the Delaware County Department of Job and Family Services 5-year strategic plan.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Good morning, Angela Thomas, Job and Family Services. As you recall, a presentation was conducted last week by Thomas Miller and Associates, as well as Director Dombrowski, on the 5-year plan for Job and Family Services, and we're now back requesting your approval on the strategic plan. Questions on that?
Planning, I think, is one of the most important things that we do, and so I want to commend you for taking the lead and trying to put together a long-range strategic plan. It looks like you're really focusing on 3 areas. Communication, you're trying to build not longer term, but better retention, in particular among your staff.
That's correct,
And then
yes.
lastly, working more closely with your partners, working more efficiently, more closely with your partners. So
I believe that probably encapsulates all of what we've incorporated into the 5-year plan. And as you
Yeah.
recall, this 5-year plan was put together as a result of a lot of input from you and from the rest of the community, as well as our staff, looking at where our weaknesses were and then try to build on our strengths and improve those weaknesses. And those are areas that we identified as
Right.
where we needed to strengthen our involvement in the community, and make sure we have staff that are knowledgeable and able to work with our various partners. That's where we're going to focus on the next 5 years.
yeah, I think the broader concerns that I have that and one agency can't really singly address is the cost of Medicaid. For the long term is not being funded, at a level that's sustainable. So something has to be done. Now, that's obviously out of your hands. And just again, your agency is unique. It's got federal funding, it's got state funding, it's got local funding, and how those sources of revenue, consistent they are, and how they change over time, and whether they decline or increase is always a concern. And lastly, a couple things, just the cost of the programs versus the benefits. I know David does a really nice job of making sure that we're managing our resources conservatively, and then incentives for the programs to be temporary. We don't want people permanently depending on the programs that we have, so I know we need, and again, those are largely program-driven, but those are my concerns, the bigger concerns long-term.
And I think if you look at our mission and vision statements, those address those concerns.
Right.
We need to help individuals become self-reliant.
Yes, very important. So again, applaud the effort, and I think the plan's real solid, and it's got a lot of details behind it. It's multi-year. It's going to be multi-year to get it all done.
And it helped that we had the presentation then, and then you gave us the info to read, and which we did, and so it's a great plan. Appreciate it.
I think it's fantastic we have a 5-year strategic plan. I read it, frankly reread it. Sometimes I don't think it's specific enough. I think it's a little too general. I think it's a little more textbook than maybe fit our situation, but maybe prove me wrong. And have a plan, and a plan that follows and makes us better. I think we all agree to that. There's no problem, but that would be my concern. I'll just express that and leave it at that.
Yeah, and I understand that. And I think, this is kind of an overall plan. So as we start implementation, I'm sure we'll get into a lot of detail as we start the implementation process. So, I'm sure that, this is just an overview.
And
I
it's
agree.
from a fairly high level. I'm not again, you understand my concern.
Understand completely.
Well, I think the implementation, though, was good, and that you spelled out who was supposed to meet, and then with some dates. That's the key to this. as you know, so.
Yeah, and as you know, we're using our leadership team, and as
Yeah.
David talked, we're going to
Sure.
try to build in some mentoring as a part of that to kind of develop our leadership team and bring along some of the newer members of that team as some of the more senior members are
Sure.
moving up the ladder.
Right, no, that's great, thanks.
Yep. All right, thank you, Angela.
Vote on motion 17-1201. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
All right,
Resolution number 17-1202, in the matter of approving First Amendment to the contract for the provision of child placement and related services between the Delaware County Department of Job and Family Services, the Delaware County Board of Commissioners, and Provider Advantage Family Outreach and Foster Care.
So moved.
Second.
discussion?
Advantage Family Outreach and Foster Care, this contract expires December 31st. However, we currently have 5 youth placed there, which cost us $15,768 a month. The original contract was set up for $175,000. Since we've spent $141,000 to date through September, we're requesting an additional $14,000 to get us through 12/31 of this year.
Good. Vote.
Vote on motion 17-1202. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Angela.
Resolution number 17-1203, a resolution of necessity for purchase or lease of automobile for the use of county commissioners, any county department, board, commission, office, or agency, or any elected county official or his or her employees.
So moved.
Discussion?
Morning, Commissioners. Tiffany Mag with the Regional Sewer District. We're requesting your approval this morning for the purchase of a crane truck. The state bid pricing that we've received on that is right at $180,000 for this truck. We actually talked to the city of Marysville. They purchased a very similar truck for a little over $200,000 because they hadn't used the state bid pricing. So we feel that the pricing is pretty good for what we're getting here. But basically, the main reason why we need this truck is because we're constructing those 5 new pump station projects, and a lot of those pumps are going to be significantly larger than what we currently have in our system, where we need a much larger truck to be able to pull those pumps up in the event that there are a pump failure or a reason to pull a pump. Also, it allows us to build a type of station where the pumps are submersible and inside of the flow, versus a dry pit station, which can be up to about $1 million more in concrete cost to build that type of a station. So it looks like a big dollar amount here, but it actually does allow us to save quite a bit of money with the type of station that we're able to build in the system. So if you have any questions.
Was this planned?
It was, yeah, we budgeted $200,000.
Okay, okay.
I hear you say that we're buying it for $20,000, $30,000 less than what Marion paid?
Yeah, probably about $40,000 less.
Marysville.
Marysville?
Marysville, yeah, they
Yeah.
purchased one, I think, about for $220,000.
Kudos.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I think the state bid pricing is really good on this truck.
Oh, good, that's good. Hopefully, they know that pricing is available. We want to help our friends in Union County. Okay, vote.
Vote on motion 17-1203. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1204, in the matter of accepting sanitary sewer improvements for Sunset Point.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
This project has been constructed and met all of our requirements, so we're requesting your approval.
All right, vote.
Vote on motion 17-1204. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Apparently, our county engineer's office was unable to be here this morning, so if it's the wish of the board, we can continue with no representation on those items, or we can move those items to next Monday.
I think, did they want to delay them, or?
It would be up to the board. If the board has questions, or we can proceed and vote without comment from the
Did
engineer's
they ask
office.
us to
They didn't ask us to
proceed, or
delay
did
them.
they just didn't show up, or what?
Cy Kelly, Deputy Administrator. Rob Riley just texted me and he said there's a confusion in who was going to be here today. So he said we can move these to Monday or Thursday next week, if that's okay with the board.
Thursday of this week, or Monday of next week, or Thursday of next week?
He said Monday or Thursday, but
Of next week.
That'll be Thanksgiving next week.
Yeah, next Thursday's
So it
Thanksgiving.
must be this Thursday.
So it must be this Thursday or
Okay,
Monday.
okay. I didn't have any concerns about, I don't think any of them, actually.
Well, we can go ahead and approve the resolutions then, or I can read the resolutions and you can decide if you're going to vote yes or
Yeah,
no.
well,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and do that. May as well keep these things moving along.
Okay, so item number 15, resolution number 17-1205, in the matter of approving a ditch maintenance petition and the ditch maintenance assessments for Scioto Ridge crossings.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Si, you want to speak on behalf of the engineer? All right. Yeah, again, this one's, the petitioners represent 100% of the property owners, and
Correct.
the engineers approved it, so I see no reason to delay it. Okay, we'll take a vote.
Vote on motion 17-1205, Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill. Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1206, in the matter of approving the plat of subdivision for Scioto Ridge Crossing Section 1 and Scioto Ridge Crossing Section 2.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Again, it looks like all the appropriate sign-offs are there, so I'm okay voting on this one.
Me too.
Vote on motion 17-1206, Mr. Merrill. Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1207, in the matter of approving a contract for sale and purchase between 701 Home Road LLC and the Delaware County Board of Commissioners for the project known as Del CR 124-6.45.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Again, this is one that we are familiar with and have, again, I think it's appropriate to keep this project moving. It's a very important project, the Home Road widening project. So I'm okay taking a vote on it.
Vote on motion 17-1207, Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1208, in the matter of approving right-of-way permit summary sheet.
So moved.
So, second.
Discussion. These look like routine,
Yeah.
so I'm okay taking a vote.
Vote on motion 17-1208, Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill. Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1209, in the matter of approving an owner's agreement for Cheshire Wood, Section 3, Phase B.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Again, this looks like a standard owner's agreement. I don't see any reason to delay the vote.
Vote on motion 17-1209, Mr. Merrill. Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1210, in the matter of approving a cooperation agreement between the Board of Commissioners, Berlin Township Trustees, and the county engineer for Pyatt Road improvements.
So moved.
Discussion. This is a little different. So I guess I would opt to table this one. I had some questions on this. I don't
Okay.
think it would be something I would object to, but
Right.
I had some questions with the engineer on this one. This is a different project. And
We had a memo on it. Did you see it?
yeah, I did, but I still had some questions.
Okay.
So we'll
Remove that one.
hold this one for a week.
Do you want to remove your first and seconds there, and we can plan for that for the 20th then? Or-
I'll pull my, it's going to be,
Okay.
All right. So that brings us to item number 21 on page 72, resolution number 17-1210, in the matter of appointing a member to the Berkshire Landing New Community Authority Board of Trustees.
so moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jane Hawes, Communications Manager. This is the first of 4 community authorities where we're appointing new local government representatives to replace Farzan Ahmed. In this case, it would be Robert Riley to take his place and fill out the unexpired term. So we recommend your approval.
Okay, vote.
Vote on motion 17-1210. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1211, in the matter of appointing a member to the Concord Scioto Community Authority Board of Trustees.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
In this case, we have Michael Fromer, who would be appointed as the local government representative to fill out the unexpired term. We recommend your approval.
Vote.
Vote on motion 17-1211. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1212, in the matter of appointing members to the Evans Farm New Community Authority Board of Trustees.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
And this one, Robert Riley, again, is the local government representative to fill out the unexpired term, and we recommend your approval.
Vote.
Voted on motion 17-1212, Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Resolution number 17-1213, in the matter of appointing a member to the North Star Community Authority Board of Trustees.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
And finally, this one, we have Tiffany Megg, who will be serving as the local government representative, filling out the unexpired term. For approval.
Yeah, I guess we'll take a vote, but just comment that these are very important organizations, these new community authorities, and I want to thank the individuals who have agreed to serve to fill out those terms. There's a lot going on in each one of these communities, and these are very important positions, so I appreciate the interest and the effort. So we'll take a vote.
Vote on motion 17-1213, Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Resolution number
So do our public hearing.
Yes, I moved our public hearing. Resolution number 17-1214, public hearing for consideration of the application to add parcels of real property to the Berkshire Landing New Community Authority District and to amend the petition for establishment of the Berkshire Landing New Community Authority District as created a new community authority under Chapter 349 of the Ohio Revised Code.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Good morning.
Morning.
Commissioners. I'm Kip Wallers. Welcome to...
Just a second, just a second.
Interrupt for a second
Got one
there. We have one more resolution.
go.
Just in case we have
We
speakers.
have to waive some rules.
Resolution number
You're fine.
17-1215.
Stay there.
1215, in the matter of approving for a specific occurrence, a suspension of Rule 3, speaker registration, Rule 4, limitations, and Rule 7, public comment procedures from the rules governing public comment before the Board of County Commissioners of Delaware County, Ohio.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 17-1215. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
All right.
All right.
The hearing is open. The floor is yours.
So I'm here on behalf of the Berkshire Crossing Development in connection with a petition that they filed to add about 240 acres of property to the Berkshire Landing New Community Authority. This property is going to be primarily residential. It's going to be used, part of this, the facilities charge will be paid over to the school districts having jurisdiction. They're both in Berlin Township and in Berkshire Township. So Big Walnut and Olentangy local schools will be getting the community development charge. In exchange for that, the schools have, I think, agreed that there is a TIF that will be placed over the area that will be used to construct certain public improvements, including Four Winds Drive, and I believe that there are some reimbursements to the county coming from that. So essentially, these are 240 acres that need to be added to the community authority. The city has agreed to this, and that it's a pretty simple, straightforward matter.
Why were they not added in the beginning? You know?
I don't think the property, they just weren't ready to do that. I don't think that they knew exactly what was happening, and this was in 2015, and I think surrounding that, the formation of the original community authority, the focus really was on the outlet mall, bring North Star in, and I think some of the other property owners. So these were not part of the original property owners who were part of this.
Okay. Questions? All right. Take a vote.
All right, we'll close the hearing.
Yeah, close the hearing.
All right. Resolution number 17-1216, in the matter of closing the public hearing for consideration of the application to add certain parcels of real property to the Berkshire Landing New Community Authority District and to amend the petition for establishment of the Berkshire Landing New Community Authority District as a new community authority under Chapter 349 of the Ohio Revised Code.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 17-1216. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye. Thank you.
What, I can,
All right.
resolution to approve, or? Resolution number 17-1217, resolution approving the application to add certain parcels of real property to the Berkshire Landing New Community Authority District and to amend the petition for establishment of the Berkshire Landing New Community Authority District as a new community authority under Chapter 349 of the Ohio Revised Code.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 17-1217. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
That
Okay.
brings us to administrator report.
Pressure's on.
Wow, my first report today. It'll be a little sewer-oriented, but that'll be a good start for me. Tiffany left today to head out and turn the valve to send flow to Lower Scioto. We've calculated, as only our office would do, that it's going to take 3 hours and 30 minutes for flow to actually get from the point to the plant. So the real excitement's not going to happen until probably 1:30, 2 o'clock this afternoon.
So you'll be yelling and screaming and
So
excited?
it's one of those things where you don't hear anything that's a great sign. It's one of those where if in a week from now I ask, hey, how's everything going? And they say, great, then that's good. But if I hear something before then, we might have some problems. So I would like to, publicly thank the commissioners for the appointment to county administrator. I know I speak for Cy and Dawn and myself. We're very excited to work with you guys in executing and leading the county. Just in the last couple of days, I never thought at Meet the Team Night at Olentangy Basketball that this would be such a topic of conversation. But the input is very. A lot of people are very excited, and I thought maybe I'd get a lot of questions about the unique structure, but I think everybody understands it, and it makes a tremendous amount of sense to them. Back when I first met all three of you in January of 2016 for the first time, when you interviewed me, I could just, when I left that interview, I knew exactly the vision you had for the sewer district, and I knew how I could get there. My wife wishes I had that vision. I would take on her vision at home that easily, but I don't quite get there. But and over the last year and a half, 2 years, it's been very natural to help implement that vision, and I think that I'm looking forward to working at a broader scale with that same, under that same, and once again, very collaborative effort with Cy, Dawn, and the other directors. It takes an army, I think, to change and implement vision. So anyway, that's all I have. So I went a little longer than I wanted, but
Great.
All right. Commissioner Lewis.
Great, well, we're thrilled to have our new county administrator, Mike Frommer, and Dawn and Cy aboard as our deputy administrators, and you are a great team already, and you will just continue that work together, so we're very excited to be able to work with you.
Is that it?
We had a 36-37 study the other day, but yes, let's talk about Ohio State. The 36-37 study, I think, is going to be very valuable. That corridor, as we were talking about the other day, is something that we can still mold and be ahead of the game and really develop into something very, very big and just a tremendous project for the community. So I'm excited to go into the next phases of that. And yes, we had a football game. Sparty versus the Buckeyes.
That's right. That's right.
It was a great comeback for the Buckeyes.
Come back, they were ever behind, were they?
No, I meant from last week, which I shouldn't have brought up. Yeah. Yes.
All right. Mr. Number 3 in the country, Commissioner Merrill.
I mean, as a commissioner? Just a couple of things. Obviously, this was a very special week weekend for the veterans in our county. There was a lot of activities. Commissioner Benton and I were at the Veterans Breakfast, and I would say there were a few challenges that need to be addressed maybe going forward. I want to compliment Eagles for making their facility available and to allow that facility to be used to acknowledge our veterans. And they're extremely important to our county. They deserve, we can never say thank you too many times. And but there were some challenges that were observed by not only us but many others. And I'm just going to ask that, I think to make sure that from the county perspective that we're involved, if with the blessing of the other two commissioners, I'm willing to kind of take a lead role in making sure that some of those challenges get met and we make this what it really needs to be, and that's a thank you to our veterans and make them feel really good about it. So with your blessing, I will take the lead on that, and we'll see where that takes us.
Great.
And the parade was also Saturday, and I was going to be in the parade, but Carolyn said we're short vehicles, so I ended up not in the parade, but I met up at the fairgrounds for the closing activities, and it was, I thought, very well attended, and I think everybody should be very proud of how that went. And Carolyn does it, and many others, but Carolyn's the one that comes to mind. Her involvement, her appreciation and support of the veterans in this county is outstanding.
Carolyn,
in so many ways that she shows that and exhibits that. Just hearing her talk about it, you feel the emotion that she feels. And yesterday I had the privilege of going to the ribbon cutting for Brown Township building, and very, very well attended. I did not make a count, but there had to be at least 200 plus there, which is really exceptional for an event like that. And Mr. and Mrs. Sheets, who made a significant donation to make that happen, Mr. Sheets spoke very eloquently. His passion for the old school and the monument that's now out front, and it's a building that is very impressive for a township that size. And so I think they're going to have their first township meeting. Will be, I believe right now it'll be the first meeting in December, which I think I'll attend. Maybe we all should try to attend it just to show our support that evening. But and that's all I have. It was a very, very busy week.
It was, yeah. Let's see, a couple other things. We did go to the Sunbury Chamber dinner Thursday evening. That was very well attended as well. They have a very active group. Cindy Arendt and John Fox had that group up, and they're very active and do a lot of things, and a lot of members growing. So, again, it was a great event. Central Ohio Youth Center had their board meeting last Thursday, and it's interesting. Their challenges now focus on, they're seeing more mental illness among the young population that goes there. And they don't really have a coordinated program like many of the senior, or many of the adults, that we have treatment programs available, but on the youth side, they just have gaps.
Okay.
So I thought I'd mention that because that's a focus of theirs. They're seeing more and more mental illness cases in their population. And let's see, went to Morpsey, everything's moving along there. I think we're integrated there. Our two main projects, the two interchanges on 71, continue to receive high support among Morpsey, which is very important. Tomorrow is the Agricultural Society or the Delaware County Fair Board vote, so I would encourage everyone to register today and vote tomorrow. I don't think
Can you register this late?
Yeah, I think you can. You can't register tomorrow, though.
So you have to $2 membership.
$2 membership fee.
Pay to be able to.
It's once a year at the fairgrounds, at the fair headquarters building there. Economic Forum is tomorrow night at Ohio Wesleyan. Bob Lamb, our Economic Development Director, is one of the panelists, so it should be very interesting to hear what he has to say about that. And that is it for me. I will turn it over to Jennifer because we do need to go into executive session.
Do. Resolution number 17-1218, in the matter of adjourning into executive session for consideration of appointment and employment of a public employee or public official.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 17-1218. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
All right, we are in executive session.